the invasion came swiftly. In April 1941, Nazi Germany, along with its allies Italy, Hungary, and Bulgaria, invaded Yugoslavia. The country fell quickly, and its territories were divided among the Axis powers. For the people of Yugoslavia, the war brought not just occupation, but also brutal repression and persecution. Amidst this chaos, a resistance movement began to form, one that would become one of the most effective in occupied Europe, the Yugoslav Partisans. Led by Josip Broz Tito, the partisans started their struggle in the rugged mountains and dense forests. As a young man from a small village in Bosnia, I joined the partisans after my family was killed in a German reprisal raid. Driven by grief and a desire for vengeance, I found myself among comrades who shared a common cause: the liberation of our homeland. 1942 Guerrilla Warfare. Our tactics were unconventional. We were not a regular army but a guerrilla force, relying on the terrain to our advantage. We struck quickly and disappeared into the mountains, hitting German convoys, sabotaging railways, and ambushing isolated outposts. Life was harsh, supplies were scarce, and the winter cold was biting. But our resolve was unwavering. One of our most significant operations was the liberation of the town of Uzis in late 1941, where we established the short-lived Republic of Uzis. It was a symbol of resistance, but the reprisal was swift and brutal. We were forced to retreat, but the spirit of resistance only grew stronger. In the forests and mountains, we moved silently through the underbrush, our familiarity with the terrain giving us an edge. Nights were spent in makeshift camps, huddled around small fires, sharing stories of lost families and dreams of freedom. The bond among us grew stronger with each passing day, united by our shared suffering and unwavering determination. 1943, the tide turns. By 1943, our numbers had swelled, bolstered by recruits from across Yugoslavia: Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, Slovenes, Montenegrins, and others united against the occupiers. The Axis forces launched several major offensives to crush us, but each time we managed to evade destruction. The most famous of these was the Battle of the Neretva in early 1943. Surrounded and outnumbered, we made a daring crossing of the freezing Neretva River under constant attack, managing to break the encirclement and continue our fight. The Neretva crossing was a desperate maneuver. The river, swollen by spring rains, was a formidable barrier, and the Germans had destroyed all the bridges. We built makeshift rafts and swam across, under fire from enemy machine guns. Many were lost to the icy waters, but we pressed on, driven by the necessity of survival and the hope of eventual victory. Another major battle was the Battle of the Sutjeska in mid-1943. Again, we were encircled, and the fighting was intense. The losses were heavy, including many of my closest friends. Yet, Tito's leadership and our determination saw us through. The sacrifices were enormous, but each victory, each escape, strengthened our resolve. In Sutjeska, we faced not only the German Wehrmacht but also their Croatian and Italian allies. The forested hills echoed with the sound of gunfire and explosions. Wounded comrades were carried on makeshift stretchers, and the sight of their pain fueled our anger and determination. We fought fiercely, knowing that surrender was not an option. 1944, gaining strength. As the war progressed, our efforts began to gain international recognition. The Allies started to provide us with support, recognizing the effectiveness of our resistance. Supplies, weapons, and advisors were parachuted in, boosting our capabilities. The tide was turning, and our guerrilla warfare evolved into more organized and coordinated military operations. We launched offensives to liberate territories, working with Allied forces and coordinating with other resistance groups. Our ranks swelled with new recruits, and our morale was buoyed by the knowledge that we were not alone in our struggle. In late 1944, we participated in the liberation of Belgrade. The operation was a massive effort, involving fierce urban combat. House by house, street by street, we fought to drive the Germans out of the city. The joy of liberation was tempered by the heavy casualties we sustained, but the sight of the Yugoslav flag flying over the city was a powerful symbol of our resilience. 1945, the final push. By early 1945, the Axis forces were in retreat, and we were on the offensive. The liberation of Yugoslavia was in sight. We coordinated with the advancing Soviet Red Army, and together we launched assaults on remaining German strongholds. The final push was marked by intense fighting and significant sacrifices, but our determination never wavered. As we advanced through the country, we encountered the remnants of the Nazi occupation, burned villages, mass graves, and devastated landscapes. The horrors of the occupation fueled our resolve to see the fight through to the end. We were not just reclaiming our land, we were avenging the countless lives lost to the atrocities of the occupiers. The final battles were fierce. The Germans, though weakened, fought desperately. In cities like Zagreb and Ljubljana, we faced intense urban combat. The ruins of these cities bore witness to the devastation of war, but each liberated street, each freed neighborhood, was a step closer to reclaiming our nation. May 1945 Liberation. On May 15, 1945, the last of the Axis forces in Yugoslavia surrendered. The war in Europe was over, and our country was finally free from occupation. The sense of relief and triumph was overwhelming, but it was tempered by the memories of those who had fallen. We had fought long and hard, and the price had been high. But we had achieved what we set out to do, to liberate Yugoslavia from the grip of Nazi tyranny. Returning to my village, I found it in ruins. The scars of war were everywhere, and the land bore the marks of conflict. But amidst the destruction, there was a sense of hope. The people who had survived were determined to rebuild, to honor the memory of those who had perished. Years later, as I walked through the forests and mountains where we had fought, I reflected on the journey we had undertaken. The bravery of the partisans, the sacrifices we made, and the resilience of our people were etched into the fabric of our history. The Yugoslav Partisans had not only liberated our country, but had also forged a new sense of unity and purpose. The struggle of the Yugoslav Partisans was more than just a military campaign. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit of a people who refused to be subdued. The friendships forged in the crucible of war, the memories of fallen comrades, and the victories won against overwhelming odds were a source of enduring pride. As I looked out over the peaceful landscapes, I felt a profound sense of gratitude and pride for having been part of something so monumental.